Hello, I'm Occult Priestess Reverend Corinne. In the past, I've channeled mostly in private. There are times in readings when the spirit guides of the client comes through and the channeling happens then, lots of personal messages. And my favorite one that I'd like to share with you is a client that I was looking psychically at her room and around her house because my spirit guide was leading me visually. And we ended up in the bedroom, and her bed was full of stuffed animals. And then the spirit guide said what that meant and what that means to her, and why she has them and why they're so important to her. And she freaked out completely because it was true. And that was really cute. I liked that one. So usually channeling is very private for me because honestly, even though I see it happening, I'm a conduit of it, and I get confirmation from people I hardly know. These very particular facts that blow them away, and it blows me away too, but then afterwards I'm like, is that really real? So skeptical. I'll get over it. So channeling has always been very private for me because I never knew whether to truly trust it or not. And for some reason, I've always had this big block of, well, I never want to be wrong, because if I'm wrong, then I'm not doing it right. And I shouldn't be doing it anymore, being a professional psychic. And I'm usually right, and that's the thing. I don't like predicting from spirit guides, channeled predictions, because, they could be wrong. And it gets me kind of nervous about being wrong. So, I remember a couple years ago, I was with a friend who we were channeling both of our spirit guides. And that's always fun, to be with someone else who can also do it. And then there's basically 4 people in the room talking. But I asked my spirit guide, Hermes, what's the next crazy thing that's going to happen that no one would believe and no one would think would happen? If I said it, I'd be crazy. And he said that a hurricane, I think it was, was going to hit Ohio. And so I told my friend, obviously, because we were all right there, and not a week later we had complete damage from a hurricane. So that was fun and interesting. I thought I would give it a whirl on the World Wide Web and see if Spirit's willing, if we can figure out what's going to go on before it happens. Sounds pretty interesting to me, a human experiment. And I end up watching a lot of conspiracy theories, and I subscribe to many truthers out there, and they're great, and it's fun, it's so entertaining. It's deeper than, it lends me a deeper experience. I feel more enriched by it, and I feel like naturally I was born a skeptic, so I'm going to be skeptical most of the time anyway. I'm not going to get lost in a sea of doom and gloom of what's about to happen to everybody. And it's pretty obvious, you can tell the truthers that are more fanatical and the truthers that are just the facts, man, this is what's going on, make up your own mind. So I hope you make up your own mind. That's where I'm at with this. I have had visions where I've been told that I have a certain role in this incarnation and that I have the talent because of the role I have to carry it off, to pull it off. And apparently, and this is one thing I hear all the time, is that I made a promise, oath, to always see And that's through incarnation after incarnation that I will always see what's going on in the given moments and beyond that moment. And beyond this dimension, beyond third dimensional senses, I see beyond that. And which makes me very emotional and very humanitarian, and, you know, it really affects me. But I do have 6 planets in air, so I tend to be Spock from time to time, just, you know, just the facts, like I said, you know, the straight guy. And I find that's a good combination in me, with Neptune in the 12th house. So that means that being psychic and things of the subconscious are my karma, and which goes along with what Spirit says to me that I took an oath or a vow to always see. So it seems 2012 has always been important to me, and, you know, recently I've found out a lot more about every theory on 2012. There's a great movie online linked below, the 2012 movie. I haven't found any theories that are not represented somewhere in that movie, so it's a good catch-all. I've blogged about this subject, link down below, all of that. So I've educated myself on this subject in many different forms, from fantasy to what seems logical to happen. And what seems logical to happen is absolutely nothing. I am the proud owner of many old books and old digests of occultism. And in the 1930s, they talked about the end of the world. They talked about comets coming and the New Age. Even back then, our language has evolved, but it hasn't changed that much. We're still using the same language that they even used back in the day in the 30s. So logic would tell me that not much is going to happen here, because there was always some big to-do. It was just because it was your turn to be alive. It was your lifetime. So something big had to happen during your lifetime. That's what I think it is, this self-aggrandizement of a particular lifetime. Again, it kind of goes with the people who believe that if they are reincarnated, they must have been Cleopatra. You know, they must have been some big wig, because they're so amazing. I don't know. I don't get it. But when you look at it for real, and of course, people who have been through past life regressions, or those like myself who performed many of them, you get to see a pattern. You get to see the pattern that most people are normal people, and they had normal lives. And of course, there were intricacies in their play. They're usually, I mean, the ones that I attracted to myself as clients have had very normal lives. So what makes it important that we're here now in this time, as opposed to the amazing things that were going on in the 1930s? We are approaching 2012 very quickly. Looking back at history, logically we could surmise that this is just another fad. This is just something else that's going through our collective consciousness, and it'll soon pass. Yet this particular phenomenon of 2012 has a lot of history to it, and I feel like I was born knowing about it. And my higher self, or my holy guardian angel, tells me that we've incarnated as light workers. You know, we're here to help. But at the same time, she says we're here for the party, which gives me some kind of anticipation that something's going to happen to humanity, because my soul chose to come back at this time to help with the harvest, and then to enjoy the harvest with everybody else. She does talk about it like a garden, like planting, and getting our fingers in the dirt. You know, she wanted to cause change. And I call her she because I have an ego. Enough said. So since 2012 is such an interesting subject, and such a timely subject, I figured it would be also interesting and timely to ask Hermes a series of questions about the future and what it holds for humanity in the next couple of years. So, I'm being informed that I'm tuning into a vibration from Sirius, and Hermes often talks about Sirius B the past few years. And it's like a radio broadcast, tuning in on that. And I see my guide, Hermes, there. And I ask, what about the Mayan calendar? What about 2012? What about the Kuga cycles of the Hindu, a religion that we're coming to the end of a great cycle here, and that Brahma is closing his eyes again. And he says humanity is being led through a series of hoops, events, and these events they're categorized type of events, and they're set to go off. So the way that he's explaining the categorized events is that, picture or imagine there are different flavors to choose from, and depending on what your delight is, or a cure, what your issue is, that medicine or that category of yummy treat is what you would choose to go through. So of course it's all vibrational, it's all like attracts like, and all of the magnetic hermetic philosophy, yet at the same time it's talking about when you have a particular vibration, another vibration is the best choice to implement. Not necessarily an opposite, because this is more about integration and unity. So he is showing it like a set of events that have been picked out to be for the highest good of all, and that we're running through them. And I don't want to be callous and say we're running through a program in the Matrix, because that's not true. Our souls are growing. This is very important stuff. So, but at this point, it's more growing as a collective. Instead of just growing, with your family unit, which, used to be very popular, just you, your family unit, and that was basically all you knew. You might know you'd be in a town or a village, but now, with the way things are, we're trying to evolve as a race of peoples all together at once. And, that's evolutionary. And of course, it's happening. There's no scientific data or anything or logic that can tell you that it's not happening. It's obvious that we're all getting together in a much tighter, closer knit, communicative way. What also seems to be happening is our latent psychic ability is coming back online. Some people were born with that this time, and a lot of the children are being born that way now. But, a lot of people are waking up, so to speak, and their psychic processes are starting to kick in, and they're getting more communication. Just as this particular communication right now has the energy of Sirius with it. So, Hermes said that there are compartments and basically hoops we need to go through to get to the point where we become more loving and compassionate. So it does seem like it's imminent that we will be confronted with our own humanity. And I would think that would happen on an individual basis and on a global basis as we grow together. And I don't really like to look at world events. I got interested in world events in the past since I had an awakening myself. And that's when I started saying, okay, this isn't just going on with me. This is going on with the planet. And I felt a very strong connection to the planet and everybody else and what we're going through in the different pockets of our Earth. And it was obvious to me during my first awakening that humanity had to wake up too, like all of us. And I think everyone who has an awakening experience kind of looks around them and says, wow, I'm not in utopia, you know. No matter if it happened 200 lifetimes ago or, you know, last week. If you're having an awakening, it's part of the experience to say, this world isn't perfect. But the world we're in currently is not sustainable. And that's the most important point. We can't keep going this way. We won't keep going this way. So there has to be some kind of change. And I believe that's probably what all this cycle stuff is about that change. And I have deeper esoteric knowledge also given to me by Spirit about the different dimensions manifesting on the planet. And the visions that I had of the future were so fantastical and so emotionally and visually amazing. I felt as if my higher self and I were one, and the earth was a paradise. And everything you looked at had a feeling, a knowledge, its own presence, and everything was love. And it was like mixing dream with reality. Those were my visions. So regardless if the physical third dimensional world goes through a dimensional shift or not, that is my reality. I had those experiences in my visions, and they were so real that it happened for me already. I had visions that there was an Astral College opened up, that this was a new creation, and that many people, new initiates, would be going there in their dreams. So as they leave their bodies, they go and take classes in this amazing Astral College, which is so beautiful. There were golden gates. The sky is the night sky, all stars, and Toulouse-Lautrec lives there. I thought that was very important to tell you. So this Astral College is for everything. It's really for mostly new innovations. You know, express yourself, be yourself, celebrate yourself in a loving, kind, compassionate way. It's really about helping people find their talent and bringing it out onto this earth plane. So I think it's a good idea, and I'm glad that I was invited to have a vision of it. When I was asked about 2012 during a reading with a client, I relaxed and kind of zoned out and just allowed my openness to be there and asked the question, what will it be like? And I got a pretty crazy answer. I saw people dressed in all time period clothing, all walking, talking together, but there'd be somebody dressed like they were from the 1800s, and then somebody dressed like they were from World War II, and it, very different genres all mixing together, like a huge stage play. And that was very interesting, that we were all, it's almost like we were all celebrating Halloween, because we realized that we're not these egos we thought we were, and we were all playing Halloween all along every day. And for me personally, that would really feel just and fair and graceful if that's indeed what happened. Anyway, it's a nice idea, but that's the vision I had, and that's what I had to tell my client. I see all times blending together and everything existing at once. And so take it for what it's worth. It's a neat story regardless. If you have any questions for Hermes, I'd like to blog about it. You know, I have this spirit guide. He is the god of communication, and he's ready to go. So if you've got some questions, I can get a collection together and do a little post about it, and I think that would be fun. So join in the mercurial madness here at Occult Priestess's channel on YouTube, and let me know what you thought, because it's the first time, like I said, this is my first time doing this, and you know, I want to know how I did. I hope you're having a fabulous day. Namaste. Blessed be.